2. Aug. 65. Dearest Suzie, excuse this pencil, but there just aren't any pens to be had around here. Also, excuse me for waiting so long to write, but I have a lot of reasons. 1. I didn't know and still don't know whether you are in New Jersey or Florida. Every letter I've received from you, you said you would be going home in a week. 2. We have been staying pretty doggone busy. 3. I keep hoping every day that I will finally get my orders and have some good news for you. Nothing yet. 4. It is just plain hard to sit down and write here. It is real easy at Vinlong to sit down at my own desk and write. I'll be glad when we both get back to our homes and settle down. By the time I get to Vinlong, I will be so short that I will be busy just getting ready to come home. And of course, that is always on my mind now. I will have so much to do and so little time to do it in. I got 2 more letters from you today, and again you said you will be going home soon. Business is the same over here. We're getting plenty of flying time. I miss you all very much, and I get more restless and more anxious to get home as the time gets nearer. Kiss the boys for me, and tell them I love them. Loving you, Bill. By the time Popi writes his next letter in early August, things are changing rapidly on both sides of the Pacific, and it's starting to press in on every soldier in Vietnam. Back in the U.S., most Americans still believed in the war effort, or at least hadn't turned against it. A Gallup poll taken that month had found that 61% of respondents said no, they didn't believe sending troops to Vietnam was a mistake. That number would shift dramatically in the years ahead, but for now, support was holding. But abroad, the consequences of that support were intensifying. On August 1st, China's top military commander broadcast a warning over Radio Peking saying that they were prepared to fight the U.S. again, just as they had in Korea. The statement was fiery and defiant, comparing President Johnson to Hitler and Mussolini, and it underscored what many in the Pentagon already feared, that a limited war could still spiral into something far larger. On the ground in Vietnam, the war was already spiraling. On August 3rd, U.S. Marines under sniper fire destroyed the village of Cam Nay using flamethrowers and bulldozers. That kind of retribution wasn't unusual, but what was unusual was that CBS News was there filming it. When the footage aired back home, it sent shockwaves through living rooms across the country. For the first time, Americans saw what the war actually looked like. Not just battles in the jungle, but the burning of civilian homes. President Johnson was furious with CBS, but the damage was done. The camera had breached the front. At the same time, the Viet Cong were stepping up their own attacks. They destroyed 40% of a major petroleum facility near Da Nang on August 5th and launched bold strikes inside Saigon, hitting the National Police Headquarters on the 15th. Their message was clear. No place was safe, and they weren't afraid to hit hard, even in the capital. Even as that violence intensified, some American leaders remained optimistic. Ambassador Maxwell Taylor confidently predicted that by year's end, the North Vietnamese would be bloodied and beaten. In Congress, there were voices like Gerald Ford's calling for an official declaration of war. But on the ground, the reality was more chaotic than confident. On August 6th, a U.S. bomber crashed a residential neighborhood in Nha Trang, killing 12 civilians. On August 12th, the North Vietnamese revealed they had mobile surface-to-air missile units and used one to shoot down a Navy pilot 50 miles outside of Hanoi. It was the first time the U.S. Navy had lost a pilot to a SAM missile in the war, and it sent a message. The enemy was adapting. Then came Operation Starlight. From August 18th to the 24th, U.S. Marines launched the first major all-American offensive of the war, a preemptive strike meant to destroy a Viet Cong force threatening the Chu Lai base. It was a brutal jungle fight, resulting in over 600 VC killed, 45 Marines lost, and something else. Respect. American generals admitted that the VC fought with discipline, withdrew their wounded, and didn't abandon weapons. It was a backhanded compliment, but an honest one. The Viet Cong weren't going to collapse under fire. They were maneuvering, learning, surviving. And all the while, reinforcements kept coming. Operation Highland began on August 22nd, clearing the way around An Khe for the arrival of the newly minted 1st Air Cav Division, the same one Popi mentioned in his last letter. The war was getting bigger, more mobile, more unpredictable. You could feel the tempo rising. Even the selective service was shifting. On August 26th, President Johnson signed an executive order eliminating the draft exemption for newly married men. Thousands rushed to marry before the deadline, but 4 days later, General Hershey made it clear. Those marriages only bought a few extra months. Beginning in January 1966, all married men without children would be draft eligible again. The war was coming for more and more households. Americans would be involved in the war, whether they liked it or not. The photo I chose for today depicts ARVN forces relaxing during training at a shooting range. They are wearing their uniforms and red bandanas. Around them are soldiers wearing brown helmets and sandbags stacked up to the right. 6 August 65. Dearest Suzie, I still don't know if you are in New Jersey or Florida. I hope that by this time you are safely back home. I still don't have any orders, but at least our duty up here is over. We will be going back to Vinlog on the 8th. It will sure be nice to get back and start packing and getting ready to come home. How does that sound to you? This has sure been a mess up here. I got so tired of doing without a pen, and it seemed like they weren't going to get any in the PX, so I went into town and got me a Vietnamese pen that writes in 4 colors. How about that? All for about $1. How is Minnie and the rest of your family getting along? I'm assuming that you are already home and that you left them all feeling well? How are the boys getting along? Does Brian still ask for me, or has he forgotten his old man? I know that my letters recently are pretty short, but it won't be long till I can tell you what I want to instead of writing it. That is why I put off mentioning a lot of my experiences over here. It will be much better to tell you about them. I love you and the boys very much. Kiss them for me. All my love. Bill. When Popi writes this letter, he's in the quiet space between 2 transitions. His mission up north is over, what he calls a mess, and he's days away from returning to Vin Long, his final posting before going home. There's a new kind of tone in his letters now. It's lighter, even a little playful, but still edged with fatigue and waiting. In this one, you can almost feel him stretching toward the finish line. It's so close, he can picture it. He's still thinking about packing, about seeing the boys, about all the things he hasn't written, the stories he saved for when he can say them out loud, that we know he never actually tells anyone when he gets home. Not his wife, not his brothers, not even his sons. And in the middle of all of that, there's this moment of pure everyday pleasure. He buys a pen, a 4-color Vietnamese pen. He's been waiting on the PX to restock on pens, as we've seen him struggle to find things to write with, but they never did, so he just went to town and got one himself. He sounds almost proud of it. How about that, he writes, like a kid showing off a new toy. It's a small thing, but that's the point. Sometimes the war gets reduced down to small things. A working pen, a quiet minute, a date on the calendar circled in your head, having fun with transitioning between colors to show off his new pen, which he does in this letter, going from black to green, then red, and finally blue. That pen is more than a pen. It's a gesture toward order, toward control, toward writing again, writing home. He might be tired of the chaos of Quang Ngai, tired of bad supplies and bad food and too many question marks around orders, but he can still write. He can still send love. And if he has to do it in green or red or blue ink, well, that just adds some color. The pen may be a novelty, but it's one that's a distraction, if only for an afternoon. This letter doesn't tell a big story. There's no new battle, no harrowing tale, but it does something else. It captures what it feels like when you're almost done with something difficult. When your mind starts drifting back to familiar things. Maybe your dog, your kids, the rituals of home. He wonders if his son Brian still asks for him, or has he forgotten his old man? That line gets me. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's honest. The ache of the distance isn't always loud. Sometimes it just comes in a quiet question that you can't answer. And if you ask Brian today, he doesn't care to know about Poppy's time in the service. He's very politely told me he doesn't want to listen to this podcast, he doesn't want to read the letters. Maybe he remembers the pain of missing his dad. Maybe he remembers what Poppy was like when he got back. Maybe he remembers all of the time he spent with Poppy at the end of his life, helping take care of him when he was sick. Poppy says he hasn't written anything about his experiences in country for a while, and that's deliberate. He's waiting to tell Mema in person. To sit across from her, maybe at the kitchen table, and finally speak some of what he's seen and done. Some things, he knows, aren't meant to live in ink. This means that we will never know about them. We'll never get the story. And that's okay. Those are the things he didn't want us to know. They're the things he couldn't share. Perhaps we've seen enough. Perhaps at this point, he's told us all that he's willing to tell. The photo I chose for today depicts an intersection in a Vietnamese town. There's a shop in the background. A bus is turning and bicycles are heading every which way. There are puddles on the street. To the left, the child is standing there without a shirt or shoes. To the right, we see a street fade into the horizon. Perhaps this is where Poppy bought his pen. 9. August. Dearest Suzie, back at Vin Long at last. It was real good to get back. We got in late last night, and I have spent the whole day getting squared away. I was told before I came back that the boxes for hold baggage were hard to come by down here, so I went to Quan Ngai and bought a big trunk. I thought it would hold all my stuff, but I spent a lot of time today packing, and I am afraid I'm going to have to get another trunk of some kind before I finish. It is amazing how much you can accumulate over a year's time. Just as soon as I get orders, I'm going to ship this trunk. They tell me it takes about 3 weeks to get to the East Coast. If I get my orders within the next week, I can be pretty sure that it will be home when I get there. A little advance warning for you, though. I'm locking the trunk and putting 2 padlocks on it, and I want to be the one to open it when I get home. Mainly because I have a lot of things for you, and I want to be there to give them to you. I didn't mind buying a trunk because I figured it would make a good toy box for the boys. I was really relieved to hear that you got home all right. I didn't get your second letter yet, explaining your car trouble, but at least you are home safe, and that is the important thing. I'll bet the boys were glad to get home. I can tell you another boy who will be glad too when he gets home. They didn't waste any time putting us back to work when we got home. We have a mission at 7:30 tomorrow morning, but I don't mind. The busier I stay, the faster the time will pass. Charlie acted like he was glad to see me. He has really grown. He bit 5 people while I was gone, and the doctor had to quarantine him and give the people shots. But don't worry, he only seems to bite Vietnamese and Negroes. He likes white people okay. He didn't hurt anybody anyway. He can't bite that hard. The doc just laughed when he told me about it. I still don't know for sure if I can bring him home. I plan on going to Saigon on R&R in about 3 days. I will find out then. I have so much to do before I leave here, but I can't do a thing without orders. Oh well, they can't wait much longer. I'm very anxious to see where I'm going, too. Have you noticed the difference in the length of this letter? It is a lot easier to sit down at my own desk with a good light and a good fan than it was up in Da Nang or Quang Ngai, where we had nothing. However, I think I will quit for tonight. I'm looking for a letter from you tomorrow, so I will try to write again tomorrow night. Tell the boys that I love them very much, and I miss you all very much. I love you very much. How would you like to have a bikini? All my love. Bill. When Popi writes this letter, he's just returned to Vin Long. It's his final posting before heading home, and you can hear the tone shift immediately. For the first time in weeks, he's back at his own desk, under a proper light, with a working fan. It's easier to write, easier to breathe. He's not quite home, but he's finally facing in that direction. And what's the first thing he does? He packs. He spends most of this letter talking about a trunk, one he bought in Quang Ngai, big enough to hold everything he's accumulated over a year in Vietnam. He thought one would be enough, but it's already overflowing, so he's planning to find another because there's just that much to account for. Gear, uniforms, photos, souvenirs, gifts for Suzie and the boys. He says he'll lock it up with 2 padlocks and doesn't want it open until he's home because some things, he says, are for her eyes only. There's something tender about that. This isn't just about logistics. It's about making the end of his tour mean something. This trunk, in a way, becomes the vessel of a transformation, a warrior, contained and carried home. Throughout American military history, packing out has been a ritual of endings. In World War II, soldiers returning from Europe often mailed back handmade souvenirs, enemy helmets, even wedding gifts they bought for sweethearts during leave in London or Paris. In Korea, guys would ship home jackets, stitched by local tailors with embroidered maps of the peninsula, their unit numbers, and the year they served. In Vietnam, the contents of a soldier's trunk might include teak carvings, silk scarves from Saigon, slide reels, and all the other things he's mentioned he's bought for everyone back home. These trunks weren't just for souvenirs. They were for memory, transition, closure. But the funny thing is, you never really know what you're bringing home, or what it will make you feel when you see it back home. Popi's trying to control that process. He wants the trunk sealed, wants to be there when it's opened, wants to decide how and when to share what's inside. Maybe it's because he knows some things are hard to explain. Maybe it's because he wants to give those gifts, especially to Suzie, as something more than objects. He wants them to feel like proof that he made it through, that he never stopped thinking of her. Then there's Charlie, who apparently bit 5 people while Bill was away. The doctor laughed about it, even joking that Charlie only bites Vietnamese and black people. Another reminder of the racial dynamics that underpin so much of the war. This letter isn't dramatic. There are no explosions, no battles, no deep philosophical reflections. But it's a letter about what happens next, about what it feels like to step out of the fog of deployment and start collecting the pieces of yourself again. One shirt at a time, one keepsake, one letter, all locked away in a trunk. The photo I chose for today shows a busy street in a Vietnamese town. Men on bicycles are speeding past. In the middle, there appears to be Popi, cigarette in mouth, loading a large blue chest onto the back of a Jeep with the help of someone else. Perhaps this is the chest he mentions, which will eventually be full of all his souvenirs that he bought during his time overseas. 13 August 65. Dearest Suzie. Still no orders. I don't know what to think anymore. It looks like they are going to wait until the day I leave and then make me have to rush around to get everything done. I am writing from the villa in Saigon. I got up here late last night. We had a big operation yesterday that lasted till dark. Then we had to rush around getting ready to come up here. Then I was so tired that I slept till 9 o'clock this morning. It is too late now to get any breakfast, so I'm just sitting here drinking some raunchy coffee that our house girl made, waiting for the officers' club uptown to open again as I can get some lunch. And of course, I'm starving. I got your letter about your car trouble on the way home. I'm just glad that you made it all right and that Mickey and Jimmy helped you make the trip. I suppose you know by now that we got a pay raise. I'm not sure how much it will be for me, but I think about $30. Of course, on the 12th of October, I will lose about $200 a month. I'll lose my separation allowance, but I would pay them that much double if we don't have to be separated. Combat pay and cost of living allowance. But I don't mind the drop in pay. I'm going shopping this afternoon. I wanted to get a souvenir for everyone to bring home with me. I saw some real nice jewelry boxes down here before. They were black with inlaid mother of pearl. I thought I would try to get one for your mother and Grandma. Oh, I didn't send Al that uniform I got for him yet. I'll just bring it home and we can send it then. There's no sense in paying more to send it from here than it is worth. I don't know if I told you about going over to the convent the other day and having a long talk with the nuns. I went over there with Captain Brown and we talked for about 2 hours. There are 2 Irish nuns over there and they are 2 of the nicest, most dedicated ladies I've ever met. At first, Sister Mary said she wanted to convert me. I told her I wasn't convertible, and she never brought up the question of religion anymore. We just had a long, nice talk and some real good raisin cake that had so much wine on it that if I'd eaten another piece, I would have been drunk. Anyway, the main reason that I went over there was that they are having a needlework sale of stuff made by the girls in the convent. They are trying to raise money to build an orphanage in Vinlong. So I was determined to buy something. Most of their work was little girl dresses. They were very cute. I thought, trying to think of some little girl to buy one of them for. But I couldn't. They had a few tablecloths there, and I finally wound up getting one of them. I got back to the compound and looked at it, and I can't think of any table that it would fit. But anyway, you now own a too small tablecloth. I just call it my contribution to the war effort. I think what I'll get for my 3 young sisters is some nice cloth for a dress, knowing that that is one thing they can always use. Well, I have about run out of talk, so I will close for now. Did you know that if I wrote to you every other day from now on, you would only get about 15 more letters? I love you all very much. Sincerely, Bill. When Popi wrote this letter, he was in Saigon again, exhausted, hungry, and still without the orders that would start his journey home. He knows what's coming, though. Departure, paperwork, the scramble of packing, and goodbyes, but it's all waiting on a single bureaucratic decision. In the meantime, he waits too, with bad coffee, no breakfast, and too much time to think. What strikes me most in this letter isn't the impatience, it's how the energy shifts. He's still making plans, still trying to show love through action. The whole second half of the letter is about gifts, souvenirs for everyone in the family, little ways to close the distance between where he is and where he's going. A uniform for Al, jewelry boxes for the grandmothers, cloth for his younger sisters. He even buys a tablecloth from a convent fundraiser, one he knows won't fit any table they own just because he wants to support a group of nuns trying to build an orphanage in Vinlong. There's something tender, even sweet, about how he describes that visit. He and another officer, Captain Brown, spent 2 hours talking with Irish nuns over raisin cake, soaked in so much wine that Popi jokes he nearly got drunk. Sister Mary, one of the nuns, tries to convert him. I told her I wasn't convertible, he wrote. But they get along fine anyway. There's something about that phrase, not convertible, that says more about Popi's approach to religion, and maybe even war, than he realizes. Steady, courteous, maybe even curious, a bit playful. A man who will walk into a convent, listen, share cake, give money to a fundraiser, and walk out with a too small tablecloth and a story he wants Suzie to hear. As his return home grows closer, Bill begins to prepare not just physically but emotionally. His writing turns more reflective. He's taking stock of what he's been through, who he's become, and what kind of man he wants to be when he gets back. That tablecloth might not fit a table, but it fits that moment. It's proof that even in a war zone, he's still trying to be generous, thoughtful, kind, still trying to bring something home besides stories and scars. And of course, there's the line near the end that lands like a countdown. Did you know that if I wrote to you every other day from now on, you would only get about 15 more letters? There's a quiet hope in that sentence, a realization that this long, strange year is almost over, that the days are finally numbered. The photo I chose for today shows a woman standing in the foreground. Behind her is a storefront full of metallic-looking candle holders, porcelain vases, and wooden jewelry boxes. The jewelry boxes look similar to the ones Mema kept. 16. August. Dearest Suzie, back in Vinlong again, and I guess I will be here until I leave for good. I have one more scheduled trip to Saigon, but I doubt if I will make it. I still don't have any orders, but I know where I will be going. Bud Bender wrote a letter to DA to check out our orders, and he got an answer day before yesterday. We are going to Fort Rucker. I am not too happy about it, but then I can think of a lot worse places to go. At least we won't have to move far. Things are the same for me. I am all packed up and ready to go. All I need is orders to ship my baggage. Then I will feel like I'm getting short when that's all gone. I imagine that you are lonesome, but you can take it for another month, and you can't be too bad off with 3 kids. It will be like old home week at Rucker. A lot of people that I know will be there. Well, I hope that you will be happy to hear that we are going to Rucker. So I will close for now. I love you very much and can hardly wait. All my love. Bill. When people think about the Vietnam War, they often picture the Huey helicopter slicing through jungle air, carrying troops into battle, or lifting the wounded out. What they may not realize is that the men flying those helicopters, tens of thousands of them, were trained in a single place, Fort Rucker, Alabama. Known today as the U.S. Army Aviation Center of Excellence, Fort Rucker became the early cradle of American helicopter warfare, and its story is central to understanding how the United States fought and adapted to the war in Vietnam. Fort Rucker's origins go back to World War II, when it was established in 1942 as Camp Rucker to train infantry divisions. It was named after Confederate General Edmund Rucker, and it functioned primarily as an infantry and artillery training post. But by the early 1950s, the Army faced a new kind of challenge, the need to develop its own aviation program. Until then, flight training had largely been controlled by the Air Force, but as the concept of battlefield mobility evolved, the Army began building its own aviation arm. Camp Rucker, soon renamed Fort Rucker in 1955, became the home of the Army Aviation Center. From this point on, it would lead the charge into a new era of military flight. As the U.S. escalated its involvement in Southeast Asia, helicopters became essential. They weren't just support vehicles anymore, they were strategy. Troops could be inserted and extracted quickly. Artillery could be moved to otherwise unreachable terrain. Medical evacuations could be measured in minutes, not hours. Fort Rucker trained the pilots who made all of that possible. The training pipeline was carefully structured. Students started with pre-flight ground school, then moved to primary training, usually at Fort Walters in Texas, before advancing to Fort Rucker for specialized instruction. There, they learned how to handle rotary aircraft in combat conditions, flying the UH-1 Huey, the CH-47 Chinook, and other helicopters under simulated battlefield stress. The numbers are staggering. During the war, more than 30,000 Army and Air Force pilots, along with over 5,000 Allied aviators, trained at Fort Rucker. Some days, the base managed nearly 500 sorties. Training was fast, intense, and absolutely essential to the war effort. The demand was so high that in 1966, the Army activated the 1st Aviation Brigade in Vietnam to coordinate the growing number of aircraft and personnel. At its peak, that brigade oversaw over 4,000 helicopters and 24,000 soldiers. When it returned stateside after the war, it continued its mission as part of the aviation training structure based at Fort Rucker. After the war, the Army shut down Fort Walters and consolidated all helicopter flight training at Fort Rucker. This made it the Army's singular hub for rotary wing training, a role it still holds today. Now known as the U.S. Army Aviation Center of Excellence, this post trains more than 1,400 pilots each year, houses over 500 helicopters, and even supports Air Force helicopter instruction through the 23rd Flying Training Squadron. The Army Aviation Museum, established in 1968, also calls Fort Rucker home. It preserves and showcases aircraft and artifacts from every era of Army flight, including many from Vietnam. Fort Rucker mattered because the Vietnam War demanded a new kind of warfare, one that relied on speed, flexibility, and the ability to get in and out of difficult terrain fast. It wasn't just about the helicopters, it was about the tactics developed around them. Rucker became the place where pilots learned to fly low, fast, and with purpose. They learned medevac under fire, troop insertions under fire, and how to fly nap of the earth to avoid enemy detection. Many of those techniques were honed through direct feedback from the battlefield and turned into doctrine on the training grounds of Alabama. In the end, Fort Rucker became more than a post. It became a proving ground. It was the place where the air-mobile warfare refined. For the soldiers flying into the heart of the jungle, it was where they first learned what it meant to hover above the tree line, land under fire, and lift off again, carrying with them not just missions, but lives. And that's it. This is the final letter, chronologically, from Popi to Mema that we still have. He would return home about a month after writing this letter, but this is what we have. He gets his orders to go to Fort Rucker. Well, not really, but sort of. He begins packing up his belongings, and he ultimately decides to leave Charlie there, giving him to someone on base. Poppy always joked that Charlie probably ended up in someone's stew. The photo I chose for today is one of my favorites. It appears to be early morning with the sun rising. It's almost dreamlike. Perhaps the exact thing Poppy would have seen most mornings over there. Undated. The following letter is missing its first page. Therefore, it is undated, and so I put it at the end. I feel like it was the best place for it. It supplements all that we've already seen and heard. Goodie box from home. He had candy and cookies all over the place, so tonight I had to lock him up. I really hated to do it because he has been free for so long. This will really hurt him. You know how I am about tying or locking animals up. But I did. I put him in solitary confinement. But he is better off than most prisoners. He has his girlfriend with him. I have a nice cage for him that my houseboy made. It sits right outside my window. Between my hooch and his cage is the main sidewalk from the flight line to the enlisted section. Since I started this letter, I'll bet over 20 people have come by, and every one of them have stopped to talk to Charlie. I haven't yet been able to get to Soc Trang, but I should be down there one of these days. I used to go pretty regularly on missions. Well, we got up early this morning for a troop lift, and it looks like we have another one tomorrow, so I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. I love you all very much and miss you more every day. I got my pictures of all of you out a while ago, and I felt so lonely I thought I was going to cry. Well, I was just about to close this letter without telling you about the cyclo ride I had yesterday. I think I sent you some pictures of the motorbikes that they have over here with the little carts they use for taxis. Yesterday, Burke Badgett and I went into town to check on some raincoats we were having made. On the way home, our cyclo lost a wheel, and the driver lost control of it and hit a Jeep. We were going about 30 miles an hour. I was thrown out into the road, and I got a few bruises. Burke was thrown against the Jeep, and it hit pretty hard. Something jabbed a deep hole in his knee, and they had to take 10 stitches in it. He was skinned and bruised on the chest, too, and knocked out. When I got up and looked around, I thought he was dead. That really scared me. Well, I really better close now. Writing to you is a very small consolation to me in my loneliness, but it helps some. I love you very, very much, more than I ever thought I could in the last 8 years. Sincerely, Bill. When Poppy writes this letter, the war is still happening. The missions are still going, but there's a pause, just long enough for Charlie to get into trouble. Charlie, his pet monkey, has been running free around the base for weeks. Poppy's been letting him have his freedom, not wanting to cage him up. But now, after a raid on a care package from home, what Poppy calls a goodie box, Charlie's covered in stolen candy and crumbs, and something had to be done. So Poppy locks him up, reluctantly. You know how I am about tying or locking animals up, he writes, but Charlie's cage is nicer than most. Built by Poppy's houseboy and placed just outside his hooch, along the main sidewalk between the flight line and the enlisted area. Everyone stops to talk to him. Poppy doesn't say it directly, but there's something comforting about having Charlie right there, still visible, still causing a scene. Then this letter shifts. He mentions troop lifts, early mornings, a plan to get down to Soc Trang, eventually, though it never seems to happen. But right as he's about to close, he pivots to something that nearly rattled him, a crash. Poppy had taken a cyclo, a kind of motorbike taxi with a cart on the back, into town with a friend, Burke Badgett. On the way home, the cyclo lost a wheel. They were going around 30 miles an hour when it hit a Jeep. Poppy was thrown into the road, bruised, shaken. But Burke? He hit the Jeep hard. He was knocked out, split open his knee so badly it needed 10 stitches. When I got up and looked around, I thought he was dead, Poppy writes. It really scared me. That fear. It doesn't sound like fear of death in combat. It's something different, random, immediate. A moment that comes out of nowhere and reminds you of how little control you actually have over anything. He doesn't dwell on it, doesn't offer a big moral, just keeps moving. Shower, bed, another mission tomorrow. But you can feel it in the tone, the rattled quiet between sentences. And then there's the ending. One of those Poppy endings that just hits you. I got my pictures of all of you out a while ago, and I felt so lonely I thought I was going to cry. He's not trying to be poetic. He's just telling the truth. That these letters help, a little. That he misses home more than he thought possible. That he's learning new depths of love after 8 years of marriage. That loneliness, even in a place as noisy and as busy as a base in Vietnam, can still press in on you like silence. The photo I chose for today is of Charlie. He's sitting on top of a helicopter, staring off into the distance. What an amazing photo. I like to think that this was the photo Popi took to show everyone everything he wished to remember about his time in service. His rides on the helicopter and his best friend, both looking forward to the distance, both looking to the sky, where things could be better. August 8th, 2025. Dear Popi, ever since I decided this is what I was going to do for the show, I've been trying to figure out some big, poetic thing to write to you, almost as if it were my single chance to say anything meaningful to you. I realized that I didn't need to do that. I'm hoping that this isn't my last letter to you. If that's the case, then instead, I'm just going to do my best to speak plainly and from the heart. To start, I just want to say, I miss you. I've done a lot since you've been gone. I've graduated high school, college, moved to New York City for a while, got my PhD, married an amazing woman, and I even have a good bit of interest in getting my book published. I'd like to think that you'd have been proud of me. I look back on the photos of me with my family and friends from those major events, and I always notice you're not there. It makes me sad. I used to be angry with you, and I'm sorry for that. As a teen, I told myself you chose smoking over more time with me and everyone else. If that's the case, I forgive you. But knowing what I know now, I don't think it is. No matter if you had quit before I was even born, I think you were just tired. We all know you couldn't sleep much. I think you were tired and just needed rest. I hope you've found peace now. I know now that it's cliche, but at the time of your passing, I had never heard the thing about cardinals being our deceased loved ones checking up on us and watching over us. The morning after you passed, when I woke up on the couch in the den in your old house in McRae, I caught Mema standing at the sink, staring out the window, mesmerized by a cardinal. She later told me she thought it was you. I like to think that she was right. I like to think that you had some fun flying again. Today, when I find myself feeling down, I honestly have this uncanny ability to notice cardinals outside. I like to think that it's you checking in, especially when I need it. I've done what I can to help take care of everyone in the family. I'm not so sure how well I've done, but that wasn't really your strong suit either, so that's fine. Your Suzie has had a really tough past year, but you'd be proud of her. She's a fighter. She wants to see you again, but she's certainly in no rush. You can wait. Just think of it as payback for all the time you spent on the tuna boat. But your boys are doing well. At least Bruce and Brian are. Brett's getting there, hopefully. I know it's nothing compared to what you went through, but it's been a long year working on this project. You'd be happy to know I was paid really well to do it. It's been quite the experience, one I'll always cherish. Call it serendipity, call it a higher plan, but it's amazing that on the 60-year anniversary of your letters, we're the same age. Knowing where me and my friends are in life, all I can say is that you and your friends were tough. You went through a lot and paid handsomely for it. You guys never really recovered. But I honestly believe your sacrifices had purpose, and they made the world a better place, even if they made your lives a living hell. I learned a lot from your letters, more from any book or movie I've read or seen about Vietnam. Thank you for writing them and keeping them. Thank you for marrying a hard-headed Hungarian who wouldn't listen to you when you told her to throw them out. You had so much to say about life in Vietnam and the war in general. Thank you for saying it, and for being honest about things. I know you couldn't talk about everything when you got home, so I'm thankful we at least had these. I'm even more proud of you and revere your sacrifices even more now, and I didn't think that was possible. I'm blessed because I had the chance to help your stories live on. I was able to do a dream project the way I wanted to, and I'm proud of it. Similar to putting on a mask, dancing around a campfire, telling stories, and truly embodying the figure you wore on your face, I got to see what it was like to be you, if at least for a few hours a month. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Thank you for that. Well, I'll close for now. I have too much to say, and I'm all out of words. Just know that we all love you. We all miss you. We're all proud of you. We're thankful you're at peace. Like I said earlier in this letter, I don't intend for this to be my last letter. So I'll write again. Yours truly, Alex. P.S. Mema said to give Missy a good belly scratching on her behalf. She knows that poor girl is in good hands. P.P.S. I hope you and Charlie have had a happy reunion. Dear audience, I want to thank you for keeping up with the podcast this past year. Whether you listened to every episode or were only able to catch a few, every second you've spent with this project has been appreciated. As a researcher, anthropologist, student, grandson, whatever you want to call me, projects like this are rare. Everyone wants to pursue their passion, but all too often you get bogged down with conversations of funding, always having to justify why someone would pay you what you're asking to write a book or a podcast series like this. The phrase they use in academia is that you have to be, quote, actively contributing to the production of knowledge, whatever that means. Well, one of my contributions can now be this. Part family history, part memoir, part narcissistic indulgence, part personal history, Dearest Suzie is one of my contributions. There are a few things I hope you've been able to get from this work. First off, I hope you are reminded of how hard war can be, not just for the individual serving, but for their family and friends and their nation back home. It's no small request when you ask someone to grab a rifle, travel across the world, and shoot at someone they don't know. It does things to someone's mind. It changes a nation's very soul. I'm certainly no pacifist or isolationist, but it's always important to consider the consequences of our actions. This project highlights a few of the consequences, whether they be emotional, mental, biological, or historical. They are always there. Secondly, I hope I've inspired you. Not that I've done anything heroic or special. We all know who I think the hero of this story truly is, but I hope you've been inspired to start asking questions to your own family. You can make your own connections. Explain things to yourself with the truth. It isn't hard to record your grandmother and you having a conversation. It may be time-consuming, but it's worth scanning your grandfather's letters. Don't be afraid to share those things, especially not with me. These histories are important and worth preserving. Truth and knowledge are always worth the pursuit. Even if you're the sole benefactor, I assure you it's better than letting everything get lost. Pardon me if I get too philosophical or esoteric here, but I hope you can follow me. Perhaps the most important thing I've learned by doing this is that nothing and no one is ever truly gone. Before I started this work, when I'd sit down with Mema and talk about Popi, she'd always talk about how much she loved him. Past tense, it's done, it's over, he's gone. But after speaking with her and reckoning with the inheritance of mine, I've started saying that she loves him. I love him. The love is not gone. It is, after all, eternal. Just because someone is gone does not mean that the love faded away. Love is eternal and true and good. So just because someone isn't here doesn't mean I can't love them. Something like this would not have actually been produced without love. And perhaps we express our love to our family in different ways. Perhaps we're not always speaking the same language with our expressions, but I hope that the people that care about me understand that this is mine. I didn't do this for me. I did it for us. I did it for him. It has been an honor to tell Popi's story. I hope you've enjoyed it. There are a few people I'd like to thank. Obviously, first is Mema. We'll talk more about her later. Next is my parents, for their support, and more specifically, my dad. I know it was hard for him at times to talk about his dad, but I hope that these things have helped him understand Popi better, and I appreciate him always telling me stories about Popi. Even if things with his dad weren't always perfect, at least he was proud of what he did. My wife, she's been the best sounding board for ideas. My friends, who have listened to old war stories about a guy they never met, perhaps he helps explain who I am a little better. Finally, I'd like to thank all veterans who are listening for their service. This is a true and sincere thank you. Your sacrifices should be revered. Your troubles should not be ignored. Your accomplishments should not go unnoticed. Thank you all for your service. We would not be the beautiful country that we are if it weren't for you. In the video you just watched, I show my visit to the Florida National Cemetery. The cemetery is located in Bushnell, Florida, about 50 miles north of Tampa. It was established in 1988 on land that had previously been part of the Withlacoochee State Forest, which itself was once a tract used for U.S. military training during World War II. The cemetery spans over 500 acres and is one of the busiest national cemeteries in the country, serving the large veteran population of Florida. The site was chosen both for its proximity to major veteran communities and for its tranquil, forested landscape. The cemetery is notable for its avenue of flags, memorial pathway lined with donated memorials, and its carillon program that honors veterans through daily chimes. Since its dedication, Florida National Cemetery has become the final resting place for hundreds of thousands of veterans and their family members. We interred Popi's ashes there a few years ago. At the end of the video, I left a penny. Leaving coins on military graves is a way to honor fallen service members and quietly communicate a connection with them. A penny simply means someone visited. A nickel signifies that the visitor trained with the service member at boot camp, while a dime means they served together in some capacity. A quarter carries the most personal weight, showing that the visitor was present when the service member died. The practice became widespread after the Vietnam War, offering a respectful way to pay tribute without intruding on the family. If you ever decide to visit Popi, he's in section 616, site 462. Consider leaving a penny so he knows you were there. Maybe bring him some coffee too. The final story I'd like to tell is also very recent. When I cleaned out Mema's trailer with her years ago, I snagged all of Popi's VHS tapes. It wasn't until about a week or two ago that I was able to get a VCR to look at them. I had 3 tapes of interest, one which read Grandma's 90th birthday party, another that said Lowy family, and one simply labeled Folks. In my excitement, I started with Folks, expecting it to be something showing Popi's parents. Instead, I saw a video of Tom Selleck in New York City and discovered that he made a movie in the 90s with that title. Next, I looked at the Lowy family one, really having no idea what it could be, only to find that it was a muted slideshow of Popi's photos. The exact slideshow that he showed everyone, including me and my cousins in North Carolina when we were kids. It was a funny little technological relic of a time when people thought VHSs were the future and film was a thing of the past. Finally, not expecting what I'd see at this point, I popped in the birthday party tape. I quickly found that it was a video recorded by my Uncle Jim. It was filmed in McRae, and it was my great-great-grandmother's 90th birthday party in 1988. On that tape, there was a video of Popi, laughing and smiling with his family. He and Mema are in it with one of my cousins when she's very little. It brought tears to my eyes to see a video of Popi again. It was good to see him smiling. It was very good. So, don't throw away any old tapes until you go through them. You might throw out something you'll never be able to get back. With that, I will end. I've gone on far too long. My best, Alex. Dearest Suzie. Actually, let's just say Dear Mema. It feels weird to call you Suzie, even though I've been doing it for a year. I want to thank you again for all you've given me. This project has been a dream to work on, and it's in part because we got to talk. We got to discuss your life, and I got to learn more about who Popi was. You've always been such a kind and caring person, and you can tell from your stories how much that warmth has echoed through our family. Your sense of humor and wit are stuff a family legend, and always will be. I understand more now why you talk about Popi the way you do. Perhaps people listening to this will hear the stories of who he was when he got back from Vietnam and be critical towards you, asking why you didn't leave Popi and protect your kids from him. Maybe that's a fair question, even if I wouldn't categorize it as such. Now that I've done this, I've read his letters as he wrote them. I've experienced the long time frame. I better understand him. And I better understand you. You had your reasons for your actions, which are always your own, and I believe you made the best decisions you could. Most importantly, this past year, you've showcased your strength. You told me I could mention this, so I will. For those of you listening, Mema was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer last fall. She was given the option of cutting out her vocal cords, effectively meaning she'd never be able to speak again, which, if you knew her, is impossible to consider. Doing nothing, which gave her a very, very short time frame to live, or undergoing chemo and radiation to fight the cancer. She chose to fight. You may think you're tough, but I assure you, it's pretty hard to be as tough as an 84-year-old woman with advanced stage throat cancer and choosing to fight it head-on. That's pretty tough. I visited her in March, towards the end of her treatment, when she had been undergoing chemo and radiation for about 6 weeks. She was tired. She was cranky. She couldn't talk. In fact, she couldn't even eat. The radiation swelled her throat, and she had to get a feeding tube put in. Sitting at the kitchen table with her in North Carolina, watching as the protein shake worked its way through her feeding tube, I told her I was proud of her for fighting. She didn't say much that weekend, but she took a deep breath, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Life's too good not to fight for it." What a humbling thing for you to say, Mema. What a showcase of strength. I'm very proud of the strength and character you've shown fighting through this in the past year. Most importantly, I'm thankful that you found out 2 months ago that you beat the cancer. I don't know how many people in your position would have chosen to do what you did, but I know that any time I think life is hard and I might want to quit at whatever I'm doing, I'll always remember that life's too good not to fight for it. Thank you for showing all of us that. Thank you for taking me to Mass and talking to me about God. You're really the only religious person in my family, and I'm happy to have had you as an example. I have faith, I do believe, and I like to think that's because of you. I'm better off for it. Mema, you have always been resilient and strong. Fighting is encoded in your DNA. I don't envy your upbringing. I don't envy the fact that you had to raise 3 kids by yourself for a whole year while your husband was getting shot at on the other side of the world. I don't envy everything that happened after that. There's always been bravery in your actions. As your grandson, I'm proud of that. Unfortunately, I don't know how to end my letter to you. As we both know, we can talk for hours without saying anything meaningful, so I will try to end here. I hope you've enjoyed Dearest Suzie, and that reliving these memories hasn't been too tough for you. I hope you see that people are interested in these stories. Popi went through a lot, but it wasn't in vain. People have heard his story. I hope you like the way that I told it. Sincerely, and with love, Alex.